position. Annie Power at the last race down. Annie Power has gone but in front of the last length. Melanie
Right the first time, they're running up towards the finish, and he's mistaken the winning post. He's mistaken the winning post completely, Roger Loughlin, and Hoyt
from Archibald. Hardy Eustace defends his title, but Archibald is flattened out in second. Then he's followed up right by, he's beginning to power. He's drifting off the true line. He's fire, and this must be home. Springs are going to win his fourth Betfair Chase, and Cordo Star is still the king. Cordo Star wins.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Tailed Off, number 3. This is a no-holds-barred podcast that dives headfirst into the wonderfully weird world of horse racing. For the curious newbies like me or those looking to sharpen their skills, we're here to guide you through it all. And as a reminder, I am the newbie, I am the racing idiot, and I'm joined by my good friends Elle and Duncan, who know a lot more than me. So, hi guys, how you doing? Guten Tag.
Guten Tag. Evening.
You good?
How are we?
Back again, number 3. Who'd have thought it, eh?
Yeah, still going strong.
I was secretly hoping this would be just a one-hit wonder, but there we go. So, guys, we've got a few things we're covering today. So we'll cover some questions. Do 2 quick-fire questions. We'll review the races this weekend. We've obviously got some news and the old Stewards inquiry. We've got one each today. And then, of course, we'll be looking forward to Cheltenham, and then we'll be doing a deep dive on the handicap system. Stay tuned for that if you're interested. And then we'll be looking at Sandown and Leopardstown, and also we'll be having a little bonus video this week coming out Friday for a deeper dive on the preview this weekend. So let's start with the questions. We've had lots of questions, so we'll try and cover 1 or 2 a week. Some are actually deeper than others. Let's start with, why do you like horse racing and what got you into horse racing? Elle, should I start with you?
Yeah, so I'll probably blame the old man again for this.
Dave, for the record.
Yeah, the master. He started taking us as a family. I mean, apparently I was first at Cheltenham as a 6-week-old baby, so I think the die was cast from a very early stage. It wasn't going to stop him going racing, having a child to come with him. And yeah, I think just enjoyed. Back in those days, we used to just drive and have a picnic as a family, play some games, so it was just a nice day out. Then Dad would disappear off into this weird betting jungle, as he calls it, and would leave us to carry on playing. And I just started to get a bit more and more curious as I got older and wanted to see what he was getting up to, get a bit closer to the horses and have a look at them in the parade ring and stuff. And then he would then show me the race cards, and obviously back then was kind of just looking at the jockeys that I knew the name of, or the colours, or the names, and then he would let me have 50p on each way and stuff like that. And the thrill, if you managed to pick a winner, and cheering at home, and the fast-paced, frantic nature of the sport, just sort of got me from an early age. Just got the bug. And then as I got older, started picking his brains more about how this weird and wonderful sport, as you call it, and it's a bit of an anorak. You can kind of just dive deeper and deeper into it. I'm hooked for life now, I think.
As you said last week, an anorak sport for anorak men. Yeah. I love that. That's a quote of the year, that is. How about you, Duncan?
Well, being married to Elle's sister, Rosie, it was kind of a given.
You had no choice.
It was almost like a contract, a rite of passage. If it wasn't into horse racing, I think it would have been death early doors and I wouldn't be where I am now. So, yeah, it was either love it or
loathe it.
Piss off. So, yeah, I think I've kind of seen bits of it and stuff on TV when it used to be on, when they had Channel 4 racing on, but to be fair, I never was interested in any of that. And then, obviously, when I met Elle and Dave and everything horse racing was going on there, it was kind of like, okay, well, they were clearly keen on this, so let's kind of see what it's about and start learning about it. 9 years later, still learning about it. Still
learning about it, and now you're teaching others about it as well. So that's,
Well, I mean, debatable at the best of times, but yeah, no. But I think it's just love it now. I think it's also like the stories that come out of it as well. So the horses, you kind of start to kind of get an affinity towards some of them that you really like, as Elle will tell you, like certain horses he loves, certain horses I love, and just the stories behind them. It's always like a nice David and Goliath story or something like that. They're always good. So, yeah, that's what's got me into it.
Here we are.
Bullied.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt? What's your
I guess, from my side, I'm not going to lie, it was all about the day out. Started like at uni. I think at uni, you went with Toby. Shout out to Toby and Elliot at Worcester races. Yeah, and obviously you boys do a lot of it, so I sort of get you send me a message when there's a nap of the day and I'll get on that and obviously to the race with you boys. And then Elliot whispered 2 words to me a few years ago, which is owner's enclosure, and that was an opportunity to be part of a horse race syndicate, which we actually should do maybe in future podcasts. And bought a show and a racehorse. I had no idea what was going on, but it's good fun. So good way to learn. And here we are. So yeah, that was good.
It was Declan Connor, I believe. So cheers, Deck. Appreciate
Cheers,
it.
Beck. So the other question we'll cover is, so what to look for with the bookies at the races, and why aren't the odds all the same? So maybe Duncan, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can do. I mean, Elle's probably got a more strong opinion on this. What to look for at the bookies. So first thing is best price. If there's anyone who looks for a best price and who's obviously clearly learnt from the master, being Dave, it is Elliot Morland. You'll be chatting to him 1 minute up at the up in the stands, and you'll then literally be talking to dust because there'll be no one stood next to you, and he'll be down. He won't even be listening to what you were saying beforehand, I don't think, because he's too busy just hawkeyeing in on everything and all the bookies and stuff to try and get his price. So, yeah, you're looking at best price first and foremost in terms of, if a horse on one board is like 3-1, but then you can get 7-2, you want to go and get that one. So that's the first and foremost thing you're looking for. And obviously, depending on the amount of places they may be doing. So if it's only 7 runners in a race, you should only really get 2 places, but some may offer 3.
Learn that from you.
Yeah, exactly that. And then the last thing, I think, was it why aren't the odds the same? I mean, that's debatable. I think it's become a lot more. Most bookies you'll find are very much similar to each other because they're all plugged in. And I know we don't want to go into this in too much detail, but they all plug into the exchanges, as it's called. So they're all kind of, rather than them doing their own books where they kind of look at the horse and they make the prices up based on the amount they've taken on horses, they will literally be plugged into the old Tinternet. And AI Big Al, and will probably be, they'll be getting all sorts of information coming down to them, so they'll all automatically change based on what the exchanges are saying. So you'll probably find that most are now very, very similar than they used to be, probably like when Elle first started going.
And the exchange is basically like the stock market.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way of looking at it. It's exactly like the stock market.
The best way of describing Elliot at the races is literally like, I was thinking like a pheasant. When a pheasant darts out, and then it darts back, and then it darts out. That's exactly like that. It's hilarious.
Potential money to be had on something. You could be talking to him about anything, and he's just not paying attention. It is literally like a bloodhound. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah. Anything else? What can I say? I do remember taking my better half Laura to the races quite early on in our relationship, and that exact scenario happened. But obviously, I hadn't warned her about that being
surprise me.
So I've just absolutely darted off like a pheasant, as you say, just disappeared, and it's quite a busy crowd trying to get bets on her stuff. And then I've turned around, and she's just like, "Where the hell did he go?" And I was like, "Sorry, I do that." Yeah, comes with the territory. But yeah, it's a good question. I think it was Ross. Shout out to Ross who asked that question.
Cheers, Ross.
He makes a good point because many of my friends over the years have said, "Are they all just the same? If I win, can I just go to any of them?" And it is quite annoying if there's like 40 bookies there and you're trying to find John Nichols and he hasn't really got a sign or an umbrella or anything, and you're like, "Where the hell is this guy? Has he gone home?" But they are literally individual businesses. Some of them have more than one pitch, so a stand at the races is called a pitch, and they pay quite a lot of money at the big courses to be there, and they do buy and sell the pitches for literally hundreds of thousands of pounds, and so it's obviously quite big business. But yeah, they're all trying to make their own few quid, and as Duncan rightly says, back in the old days when they were doing all the tic-tac-toe and the funny signs, they were absolute experts. They made their own prices, and they were like, I think this favourite will get beat, I'll go the best price, take all the money, if I'm right I win, if not I'm fucked. But now that's too much risk, obviously, so what they do is they, as Duncan says, line up to Betfair and a couple of the other exchanges, and basically if Betfair, let's go round figures, is 3-1, they might offer you 5-2 on the course. Take your 20 quid at 5-2, they'll put it straight on the price at 3-1, make the margin, so they've already got a few hundred quid guaranteed, which really takes the fun out of it, to be honest. So there probably isn't the need to shop around, although old habits die hard, as you've all seen. But one thing I would say as a word of warning is if you're looking for the best price, a sneaky thing that a lot of the bookies do at the course is, which really annoys me in like the bigger fields because there's no need to do this, is they'll have the best price and think, oh great, he's 8-1 here, he's 6-1 over there. But they'll have right at the bottom of their board a thing that says win only, which means they're not doing each way betting, which I think is just, it's called duggery. So what they'll do, especially if you've queued, because sometimes you have to queue for quite a while, you get to the front, then you go to have your bet and he goes, oh no, you can't go each way, you have to go win only. Knowing full well that most average people will go, oh, it's fine, I'll just have my money win only anyway. You shouldn't stand for that. And
that's a good
I like to call them out on it.
Check the small print
Absolutely.
before going in. Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. So, should we do P&L? How are we doing? Are we up?
Yeah, we're good. Obviously, we got off to a rolling start, which is probably going to take some time to beat. But we haven't. We've tried to keep it disciplined. We haven't thrown out too many, just the ones we really fancy. A few have been unlucky, but we have had a few places. So podcast to date, we're still £6.50 in profit to a £1 stake. So
Come on.
pays to follow the pod.
Oh, yes. So the first few we had like big, like, what was it, 15?
33 to 1 winner we had.
33 to win, yeah, nice. Okay, cool.
And we've had 2 places in the last couple of days, which has paid us a bit of money back, which is nice.
All right, review section then. Should we have a quick look back on the race at the weekend? Obviously, Elliot, you're at Cheltenham. I feel like every pod we're just saying, Elliot, you there, you were here.
I couldn't miss off the opportunity. My dad has become a member this year, which is like the holy grail.
Oh.
And he had a spare badge going, so I did have the luxury of swallowing it around members for the afternoon, which was pretty good fun. But safe to say a few Guinness were drunk on Saturday. Some good racing nonetheless.
You smell like a meadow on the way back.
Guinness and sausage rolls are a powerful mix.
Oh, there's a 3-day hangover that you need.
Potent.
So you had Cheltenham 115 Triumph hurdle.
Yeah, so that was the whole day, as we said last week, was basically a trials for the big races at the festival. One of these is the Triumph hurdle, which is aimed at 4-year-olds only, so the youngest they can race over jumps. And we've all been singing about Lulamba, who's obviously sprung to the head of the market. But the one that's probably been going about his business quietly is this East India Dock. Yeah, to be honest, I was quite impressed. He was favourite. He went on odds on for the day, and that wasn't sort of the bet that I wanted to get involved in. But he pretty much led the whole way. He was really keen, but he winged around Cheltenham and jumped the last lovely, and he just powered up the hill. Yeah. And I know he's not sort of a sexy one as Nicky Henderson's, and I'm sure Willie's going to have a fair few to throw at it. But I think he's about 3 to 1 now, which is a bit too short. But for me, he's the standout. He's proven at the course, and I can't see him out the top 3 in the trial.
I guess those that haven't been to Cheltenham, it is quite a drag to the finish, isn't it?
Yeah,
surprised how much of a drag it is.
Hill.
So like you've got to factor that in. You know.
Yeah, and there's 2 courses at Cheltenham. We'll go into that in more detail another time. But the old course is the quicker track that they run on Tuesday, Wednesday. The Triumph is run on the new course, which is a much wider galloping track, so it tests stamina a lot more. And on the hurdles, which is the Triumph, they only run, I think it's in the last either half a mile or 6 furlongs. There's only 1 hurdle, which means they're going at full pelt all the way up the hill. So you really need a horse that can see that trip out well.
Good. And then next one you had 225 Betfair Cotswold Chase.
Yes, I mean, I think we talked about maybe Long Press on the last time out. I'm trying to think who else was involved in the race that I was interested in other than Long Press at the time. It was a Gentleman's Game, wasn't it? That's what I'm thinking of. Who seemed to run, I think, absolute shite.
Yeah, well, he had my money on him, so that's probably why.
Yeah, well, I think he had mine on as well. But yeah, he ran absolutely shite race. And yeah, I mean, to be fair, the one that came out of it, I was actually really surprised about was Stage Star. I would have given Paul Nicholls, the way he's kind of in his current form, and I just would have given it absolutely no chance stepping up and trip for the first time. And he really pushed Long Press, although Long Press won, as he should do at 4 to 5 on. Stage Star, I thought was fantastic and really, really seemed to enjoy the additional distance. So that was the one I took away from that. But I think, say, Long Press now goes to the Gold Cup, but I would not be backing him for the Gold Cup at all.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that. So he's now a 10-year-old, so he's had a few injury problems, so he's not raced as much as he should have done for the stage of career he's at. 10-year-olds haven't won since 1998 was the last winning 10-year-old of the Gold Cup. Just year on year, quite good 10-year-olds have gone and they've been short prices, but for whatever reason, the stats are just so against them. Maybe all those...
Just the course is just tough course?
Basically, horses peak over jumps around 8 or 9, so once you've gone past your peak, you are coming down, and there's very few horses that can still deliver top quality performances when they're in double figure age. So yeah, I'd be really... And last year, he was bang there, 2 furlongs out, folded like a deck of cards. And I'll see the same thing happening this year. I think if they get 4th again, they've done well.
Stupid question. Is horse years like dog years?
You're asking the wrong man. I've never owned a dog. How old are dogs before they sort of...
Isn't it 7 years, so every year is 7 years?
Yeah.
So I think it's something like that. Maybe not as... Because, I mean, horses live longer, obviously, than
horses live to
dogs.
like if everything's okay. But dogs die before that. We've gone way off piste here.
Yeah.
Well, let us know in the comments, guys, if you know the answer to that, because we don't. All right, let's do Cheltenham 3 o'clock Unibet hurdle. Duncan, that's you.
Yeah, so I'm sure Elle will wade in on this as well. But that was Constitution Hill. I mean,
One of the big favs.
Losty Mouth never came over, as they said. I think the weather was obviously not the best, and she's also got an entry at the Dublin Racing Festival, which we'll go into later on. So Willie Mullins didn't send her over. So it was basically a procession for Constitution Hill up until, I mean, he jumped incredibly, just looked just head and shoulders above everything else that was in the race until the last hurdle, when there was a bit of a shit your pants moment when he kind of just fell through the last hurdle. And I think there's a clip that we'll add into this afterwards that you'll be able to see, where you can see exactly what I mean.
Bay heading down towards the final flight of hurdles. Constitution Hill stretch forward, heart in the mouth.
And I think Nico de Boinville, the jockey, afterwards kind of was kicking himself a little bit because he kind of squeezed the horse kind of too close to the hurdle, and the horse has just gone nope and just kind of fallen straight through the hurdle. So yeah, pretty lucky, but I mean, he just hosed up apart from that. So all roads now to the champion hurdle and regaining his title.
Yeah, I suppose Willie by name, not Willie by nature, because he absolutely bottled it. He didn't send his star mare over for the clash, but I don't think we expected it to come over in reality, and it just made it a bit of a nothing event. But I suppose one good thing is that everyone thought that Constitution Hill was just going to go straight from Kempton to March, and you probably would have had some doubts in the back of your mind, like, because he hasn't been seen that often in the last couple of years, and if you waited all the way till Cheltenham, is he still going to be the same horse? But he's come out and proved, other than the absolute winger at the last, he's still on the top of his game as far as I'm concerned. And I know he's favourite again now, but I'd quite fancy him for the champion this year. And if you can get even money on the day, or maybe a shade of odds, I could see a real super boost coming. Yeah, and me steaming into that. 100%.
Which day's the champion?
First day,
Tuesday.
That's
you'll
the Tuesday.
You'll be there.
You'll be there for it. You'll see him.
I'll be putting
one other thing I will
one.
add to it before we move on is Nicky Henderson was obviously interviewed after the race. He said that Constitution Hill had literally done, like, the race was so easy for him, he basically has to take him out the following day to work him again, to give him some harder work to do, because the race was just too easy.
How does he know that, though?
Well, because he came back, he wasn't blowing or anything. He was literally hadn't even broken a
How the
sweat
horse was
when the horse
reacting.
came back in. He was just completely chilled.
He was in the
relaxed,
parade
everything.
ring with a cigar, just going.
Just loving life.
Boys.
Shades on.
Were you racing or what?
Yeah, exactly. So he basically didn't do enough around Cheltenham.
All right, Cheltenham 3:35 then. Betfair Cleve Hurdle. El, do you want to go on this one?
Yeah, pretty shit race, if I'm honest. It's a shit division. It's not very
let's
exciting.
talk about it on the pod then.
But it's probably worth mentioning just a couple of things. So it's for the Stayers Hurdle trial, I suppose, the Cleve Hurdle, and it's a pretty windy division. There's basically Tiapu, nothing, and the rest at this stage. And this was the last chance for anyone on this side of the RSC to maybe put down a challenge. And the top two in the market, the only two that you could have seen maybe bridging that gap, were Strong Leader and Crambo. And Crambo once again won the long walk at Ascot, which is a kind of very similar race, grade 1 over 3 miles. But he's only kind of done that a couple of times and then absolutely bombed pretty much the rest of his career. And in fairness to him, he did make an absolute howler at a hurdle down the back straight and knocked the stuffing out of him. But the trainer was kind of saying that's not even an excuse, because he didn't literally look like the same horse. And then Strong Leader, I'm just sick to death of backing that horse. He keeps getting backed into favourite, and I'd had a few Guinness, so that probably didn't help, but waded in.
How many's a few?
Ask Pat Rooney. It's I lost count after about a few. He doesn't like Cheltenham, clearly, and the top two absolutely disappointed. And then you look at the next sort of rang of horses that kind of finished in the frame, and you've got basically Gower Road, who fair play won it, but he's a handicapper and he's never even won over 3 miles. And the horses that finished the 1, 2, 3 were all, we talked about the ratings last week, they're all rated in the 140s, and really to be a proper Stayers Hurdle horse you need to be over 160. So that basically just tells you that the quality of the race was inferior, and they all finished in a bit of a heap up the run-in. Fair play, Gower Road got his day in the sun, but that's not a race that will live long in the memory for me.
And we'll play that clip on the pod as well for Crambo.
Gal Road, Caelan Quinn on Botox has, and Crambo, a terrible error there.
So let's do Naas.
Nace. You'll upset our Irish viewers by calling it Nace.
Sorry. Nace.
Nace.
Bit on you.
Nace.
Nace.
2 p.m. Grade 3. Liz Mullen.
Yeah.
Hurdle. God, this is like a bloody language lesson. Duncan, do you want to start?
It was a free runner race. So Amsterdam, we talked about maybe last week, was it as a potential outsider for the champion hurdle. He's also owned by the same people that own State Man. That's Joe and Mary Donnelly. So probably unlikely to run both in the champion hurdle. But he's only a 5-year-old. He's only had one start for Willie, so it was a bit of an untapped potential. I stupidly, one of the horses in the race called Laffy, which was a really good flat horse last season for William Haggis, he had an entry in the Supreme and he was available at 50-1. Antepost, which means before Cheltenham. I thought, well, I'll have a bet on that, because if he runs well in this race, he's going to be half that price. And he finished third, and he's now 66-1. Talk about throwing good money after bad. Cash out. Go back to the winner. It was bad ground, but he jumped well and was quite keen. But he absolutely hosed up. I suppose the one downside is that Willie's kind of a bit lukewarm on the champion hurdle this year. As I say, they've already got State Man. He's thinking about maybe going chasing with him next season. So if you are looking to back Amsterdam Antepost for the Cheltenham Festival, I'd either go non-runner, no bet, or just wait to see if he does turn up.
And just to explain, so Antepost is before the odds actually come out, yeah? Before the exchange.
Yeah, so basically, Antepost is, which obviously means before, so everything before the declarations come out. So declarations are, so you have an entry stage, which is open now, and Cheltenham has a really long entry stage because you need to put horses in quite early. Most race courses on an average day is a 5-day entry, so you put them in 5 days before, and then 2 days before you go, yes or no, I am running. And once you've said that, you're in the race card. That means then the actual market for the race is live, so the usual rules of betting apply to that market. If you're betting, so therefore if it's a non-runner, you get your money back because he's declared to run. If you're betting ahead of the event, which is called Antepost, you're taking the risk, but you often get a better price because you might have 40 horses on the list and you know only 15 to 20 are actually going to turn up.
Yeah, okay.
So your bookie might give you 10-1 about a race now at Cheltenham, whereas you're trying to gamble on a few horses not going, yours going, and therefore being half the price on the day itself. So it's risky, but you can get a bit more value that way.
Good. All right, thanks, guys. Let's have a quick look at news then. New news. Cheltenham entries. Should we start with that, Duncan? And I guess for the record, we'll do a longer Cheltenham preview. We're dropping a few things in as we go, but before Cheltenham, we'll do a proper preview. So what's coming up then?
The only one I will pinch, I think they're all pretty much L's, but the one I will pinch, because I did mention it last week, I hope you don't mind, was on the Palladium horse. So Nicky Henderson's runner that went to Huntington, I think it was, on Thursday last week. So this was the most expensive jump source in training. It was bought for 1.4 million euros by Lady Bamford, and it won the German Derby, I think, last year. So a lot was to be expected, you'd guess, based on that price. And it went and had its hurdling debut. It won, but not very sexily. It was pretty workmanlike. I wouldn't write anything home. I think it's actually drifted now in the Triumph market, which is the first race again on Friday, from 10s out to like 14s or 16s or something. So I mean, I didn't really see anything in it that I was like, well, that's, that looked really good. So I wasn't that fussed by it.
And you also got a note on Harry Redknapp's horse, Jukebox Man.
Yeah, so Jukebox Man, so that was something that came out today, funnily enough. Jukebox Man, yes, owned by Harry Redknapp and trained by Ben Pauling. So he released a statement earlier on today. He was supposed to be going, or he looked like he was going to go for the Brown Advisory and the race at Cheltenham, but he's looks like he's got injured and has been ruled out now for the rest of the season. And so I think he was third favourite for the Brown Advisory. He was a pretty well fancied horse, and I think he won at Kempton the other week around Christmas time. Yeah, and he did. It was a really good race there. So obviously gutting for Harry Redknapp being the owner, and also for Ben Pauling, because it's a real live chance of a Cheltenham winner, which are hard to come by at the best of times. So gutted for obviously connections and the trainer as well, and that he won't be running.
Yeah. Oh, anything else on the news?
Yeah, so quick line on Sergino, obviously big talking horse at the minute, destroyed Ballyburn at Christmas. We were all obviously excited to see him run at Cheltenham, but good news is he is he's expected to come out in between, so not this coming weekend, the weekend after on the 8th. The race that Nicky Henderson is targeting is the Game Spirit Chase, which is at Newbury. Now this is a grade 2 for open. It's an open race, which means it's mainly for older horses, not novices. So that's quite a bold thing to do, to put a novice in that race, but he won it with Altuve back in the day, so it's something he's done before. Or he could run at the Kingmaker at Warwick on the same day. So hopefully we'll see Sergino go and strut his stuff in a couple of weeks' time. But I suppose the most interesting thing that's got people talking over the last couple of days is this new breakaway group of trainers that's been formed. So there is, like every kind of sporting, they have a kind of professional body for trainers, for jockeys, and racecourses have their own group and different bits and pieces. So the main trainers group is called the NTF, the National Trainers Federation. But there's a breakaway group of about 170 that have joined this thing called the Professional Racing Association Group. And that's run by a guy called Peter Saville. He used to be head of the British Horse Racing Board, as it was called at the time, so basically the head of the sport. He now runs Plumpton Racecourse, and he's got quite strong views, and he has some good points that the sport needs to improve to survive. But I don't think he's gone about it in the right way, and it's certainly not carried favour with the public, because what he's concocted is the jockeys get some money for doing interviews, which is basically a bit misleading, because that was written into a media contract 2013, I think. And that's all that money just goes to an insurance group that covers jockeys' injuries. So it feels like a fair enough thing to ask for. He's now saying, oh, well, the trainers don't get any money. So he's come up with a figure of £500,000, £500,000, that he wants all the media companies to pay the trainers. And he basically threatened, which has now just recently been resolved. Well, not resolved, but they've kind of withdrawn. He threatened that all the trainers of his group, which is, I say, only 170 out of about 435 trainers in the country, they were going to refuse to do interviews at the weekend's racing at Sandown, which, I think that's throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's not going to help British racing in the long term, and it's quite short-termism, protectionism, and just sort of looking after your own interests. Basically, there was a massive backlash, and now they've backed down and said they're not going to do that, but they're still not happy with the situations.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, bit of a strange one.
Is there a bit of a live golf? Was it the Super League? Was it the Super League?
Yeah, the European Super League.
Yeah, European Super League. Slash
Super
Live
League.
Golf.
Yeah, breakaway going on there.
Yeah.
So, and Dan Skelton as well, because he's not the man to put the head above the parapet, because a lot of punters aren't very happy with Dan Skelton at the best of times. Hashtag Banger Dan. Yeah. And he came out in full support of it and said, we should get this money. We're the actors in the show, blah, 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 blah. And that got thrown pretty much quite squarely back in his face, to be honest. So, back in your box, Dan Skelton.
Yeah.
So what happens at the photo finish?
Stewards inquiry.
All right, Stewards inquiry of the week. So we've got two today. Duncan, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think which day this was, maybe Saturday. And it was Jamie Osborne. So he's a trainer. And he had a winner at Lingfield, and as it turns out was later disqualified because the horse was carrying the wrong weight. It was actually 4.5 pounds. It weighed in 4.5 pounds lower. The jockey weighed in 4.5 pounds lower after the race than he should have been. So he should have been racing off of 9 stone 9, and he turned out to be racing off of like 9 stone 4, 9 stone 5. So, I mean, egg on your face. Not great. So Osborne was then fined £1,500 as a result of that.
Pocket change.
Say again.
Pocket change for a man like Jamie Osborne.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he fined £1,500, and the horse was demoted from it was just disqualified.
What happens with like the bets that have been paid in?
So some of them, like you have to check with whichever bookies you have. But some of them, like Sky Bet, for example, I'm not paid to say this, but they actually paid out on like the first past the post, as they call it. So first past the post. So Osborne's horse finished first. They paid out on that, but then they also paid out eventually for when the horse was disqualified for the actual winner, the eventual winner. So they paid out on both of them, which was pretty good. And some other bookies do that as well. I think Bet365 do as well. So you have to check and see what they offer with regards to that. But
and obviously, what you're talking about there is the handicap weight, which will be covering
exactly. Yeah, so when we'll get onto that in the piece shortly. The horse was supposed to carry 9 stone 7. 9 stone 9. So that is obviously put into the what's it called? The cloth, I think, that goes on the saddle cloth. And the jockey didn't pick that up when he was going out the weighing room to put onto the horse. So therefore, didn't carry the right weight. I'm sure there were some colourful words said in that meeting afterwards. Fly on the wall for that one. So well done, Jamie, and well done to the jockey William Carver as well.
Awesome. Elle, what have you got here? Horse beaten, 277 lengths.
Yeah, I just realised that our 2 entries this week are actual Stewards inquiries as well. I think that was just a happy coincidence. They weren't meant to be. But, so this is a sort of thing.
Excuse for getting it wrong.
I think this is the sort of thing that punters hate. Unless you're on the gamble, then fair play, good luck to you. But we've all seen it before, where a horse at the start of its career, maybe in novice races before it goes into handicaps, will kind of be messed around with, will be out the back, either not really trying or maybe going over the wrong trip. And then, sure enough, one day when it's, and we spoke about this at the very start with Trainers and Form, when they've got the horse fit and ready and tuned up, a massive gamble suddenly happens, and then, you know, a horse can go off favourite and win. Whereas you look at the rest of its form and you think, where the hell's that come from? And your average punter looking at the race card is thinking, well, that's got no chance, surely. And there was a horse, I think it was on Saturday, trained by Evan Williams at Uttoxeter, called Owl of Athens, and the 277 lengths is in its 7 starts that it had prior to that race on Saturday. That was the total amount of lengths that it was beaten. You know,
wow.
A long, long way in every single race. Yeah, that's, you know, that isn't a lot of substance in the form to go off. And then he was about 80 to 1 in the morning for the race. He then ended up going off the 85, so basically 2 to 1 favourite. So from 80 to 1 down to 2 to 1. Horse has got no form. Absolute, and he didn't just win; he absolutely hacked up. So rightly so, the stewards questioned that and said, "Well, what's gone on here then?" I think what annoys me about racing is because that happened on Saturday, and then there was a couple of rides at Cheltenham where, in the Cotswold Chase, Delta Work, ridden by Sean Bowen, and then Iroko, ridden by John Joe O'Neill, and one of the handicaps. Both of those horses, we all know, are going to go to the Grand National, but the weights for the Grand National don't come out for a few weeks. So basically, it's in their interest not to get as close as possible to go, and we'll talk about the handicap shortly, but to come down the handicap, to carry the lightest weight for the big race. But if you're a punter, and I backed Iroko on Saturday because he was one of the favourites, and he was looking like he was coming there, and then he just was never asked to go and try and win the race. And, you know, no one's obviously accusing them of wrongdoing, but it kind of looks bad.
Except us.
Doesn't look good, it's not good racing.
When our money's on it and they don't win, we're accusing them straight away.
Yeah, well, no one's accusing them apart from us.
So I think the final point I'd make on this is, and this is genuinely what happens in the stewards' inquiry, so they pull the jockeys in, often to start with, to just ask them, was there anything, why did that happen? Either a horse wins when it doesn't look like it should have done, or a favourite tails off, for example. And they want to just check, was there an injury, was there any problems out there, kind of, they'll ask the jockey for his evidence. Right. The stewards will note that down. If they think there's something further that they need to look at, they might get the trainer in. Quite often they will get the trainer in. And then they have all the tools in their, you know, in their remit to basically suspend horses, jockeys, trainers, fines and bans and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
With this particular one, it has been referred to this like review panel. So basically they go, we won't make a decision on the day, we'll make a note of it, we'll refer it to the other panel. And what they'll do is they'll go back through the horse's whole previous runs, because no one's probably looked at them that closely, and then they'll see, was that horse actually trying, is there skullduggery going on there? Yeah. But one thing I heard today was, so the head of the stewards team in Britain is a guy called Sean Parker, and he's been enrolled since like 2019, and of all the, I don't know how many referrals that has taken place, but not one has resulted in a suspension or a fine. So basically, what's happening is, yes, they're being brought in front of the stewards, yes, they're being asked a few questions, but what often happens is, you'll read it in the Race and Post, stewards noted this explanation, and nothing is done about it. And it's just not a good look for the sport.
It's a bit like VAR after a goal, but elongated.
Right, well, it'd be like VAR reviewing something, seeing that there was an issue, and then just going, okay, we're aware of that, thank you, move on.
Yeah, we'll note it. We'll issue an apology because that solves it. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's a very good segue to handicap. So this section is about what is a handicap in horse racing? What does it mean? How does it work? And I'll start with how, as I was trying to explain this to my wife earlier, she was asking me what we're going to cover on the pod today, and I said handicap. And, you know, for me, it's about the weight of the horse, basically. And what I didn't know is how the handicappers are meant to judge the horse and all the horses to finish at the same time, which is crazy, because I think you told me that actually not long ago. I mean, probably most of them should be sacked because they're not getting it right. Let's start from your side. Maybe, Duncan, we start with you. What is a handicap then, and how does it work? Yeah,
so I'll kind of start from the beginning. So, I mean, this, to be fair, took me a while to learn, as El will more than happily, I can see him smirking already, he'll quite happily tell you.
Oh, you're saying you've learned it now? That's good.
Well, basically, yeah.
This is like a learning validation for him if he has learned the test.
Yeah, I mean, it does take a while, so I wanted to try and do it from my layman's terms of it, and it may not be the best, so stick with me for a minute. In horse racing, you have an official who is called the handicapper, and it's their job, like we said, to assess the horse's performance. So when a horse first starts, like if we're talking about jump racing, when they first start their jumping career, they will run in novice races to begin with, mostly. So all horses in those races run off the same weight, so every horse will run off the same thing, and they have that they run in those races for 3 races, and then once they run it after the 3rd time, the handicapper will review each of the runs that it's had, and then will give it a qualifying handicap mark, so a rating. Based on its performance over those three races. From that, they can decide what class of race we can go into. And we mentioned it last time. If you're talking about from a football terms, you have Class 1 being like the Premier League, Class 2s being like the Championship, etc., and it goes down.
Yep.
So if you've got a horse rated, say, of like 100 after 3 runs, just for keep it nice and simple, there'd be a certain class of race it would be able to run in, and you kind of look at that there, basically the rating of the race, and it's whether or not it's all based on the weight that the horse will then carry. As we said with the classes races, so obviously like the weakest races you're going to have are like the class 5s, and then obviously your strongest ones, so your class 1, so then you have horses that are rated like upwards of 150, 160 and into the 170s. So if you have a handicap race for, say, like a class 5 and you're rated 100, depending on what the rules are of the handicaps, you'll have a top rating that you can be for that race. So say it was for, 0 to 100 rated horses. So if you're rated 100, you can get in, you will qualify to get into that race, but you will carry the maximum weight possible, which I think, Al, correct me if I'm wrong, 11, 10 or 12 stone is normally the one.
Yeah.
And then from that, you then work down the list. So a horse rated, say, 99 will carry a pound less than the top rated horse. And then they keep going down and down and down until the lowest rated horse, which is, I think the difference between top and bottom weight is normally about 26 pounds or 26 points, however you want to look at it.
Which is pretty much 2 stone in old money.
Yeah, exactly. So 2 stone in weight difference. So, yeah, and the idea of that basically is if you're, if the handicapper has seen you as like, okay, you're top weight, basically you're the best horse in the race, versus an absolute shitter, for example, rated, 26 pounds less. The idea is that they then want to see, the handicapper wants to see them all finish across the finish line at exactly the same time. It's like a 100-metre sprint race, and you put Usain Bolt, who's like the best in the world, all the world records, and then you put, say, me against him. That'd be hilarious. And you probably have to put about 20 stone on top of the geezer to make it fair for me and him to run against each other, because otherwise he'd just blow me out of the water. But yeah, that's kind of the idea. So, you put a bit more weight on the highest performers.
It's a little bit around like golf handicaps, isn't it?
Yeah, you could kind of say it like that. So yeah, if you're like us, well, maybe me and Elle, potentially. I'm not doing you disservice, Elle. But if we're like top of the handicap list here, like I say, a 28 handicap, so you're going to get given 28 shots and play against someone who's a scratch golfer, so plays off 0. They don't get any shots, so obviously it just makes it a bit more fair, and you can actually have a bit of a game of it.
Yeah. Elle, you obviously are the expert here, but I think Duncan did a very good job of explaining that. I'll also say, you mentioned classes. We did a video last week around how to read a race card, and we do touch a little bit there on classes, so go back and watch that if you want to see more. So, Elle, what would you add?
Yeah, to be honest, I think Duncan's done a really good job there of kind of setting it out. It is a complex thing. It's not something you're necessarily going to grasp in a space of a short video. But
trust me, it took 7 years.
But I think it's important, because I think most people, not to patronise people, but probably have an understanding that horses carry weight and the weights can be different. And anytime you look at a race card, as you said, Matt, check out last week's pod. We talk about there's some different types of races in this sport. Novice races, kind of graded races at the top, and then most of the races you'll be having a bet on are handicaps. Because, to be honest, because if every race was level weights, then most of the time the best horse should win. And then it becomes not really much of a sport. So because there's thousands of horses in the country trying to race, the only way to make it kind of competitive is to find out a system that means that the better ones are penalised a bit more, the less good ones have a half a chance. And as you said at the start, the idea is they all cross the finish line at the same time. Handicapper's wet dream. But obviously some horses are going up the handicap at the time, some are coming down, so they're never on an equilibrium the whole way. But when you look at the race card, I think the key thing is about the handicap rating and not the physical weight they carry. That's not to say that the physical weight they carry isn't important, because you'll often hear a trainer say, oh, he's top weight today, but he's a big, strong horse, he'll be able to carry that weight, no problem. in theory, that shouldn't matter because it's not necessarily about the weight he's carrying in that race. It's about his weight relative to the other horses in the same race. So therefore, if I'm rated a £7 better horse than the other one, then in theory I should be able to carry the difference in £7 to beat that other horse. So it shouldn't matter if it's 10 versus 10 stone 7 or 11.5 versus 12 stone whatever. It's kind of more about the rating that they're given. So the other thing that people will look at is if I'm studying the horse's form, and we'll definitely do a deep dive in that another pod, is one particular day, as Duncan said, he might be in a class 5 race, so he's kind of coming up the ranks. He probably is rated 100, therefore is carrying top weight. And if he wins that race, what happens is every Tuesday, the handicapper and his team, it's not just one guy, look back at all the week's previous races, go through every single horse painstakingly, and decide whether to put them up, keep them the same, or put them down. And they put them down in numbers, so that 100 could go to 105 if they win. Sometimes if they win by a long way, they can go up sort of 7, 8, 9, even £10 in one go, which is quite rare, but it does happen. That means that the next time it goes into a race, they'll go in the top weight, and whatever number he is, let's say he's gone from 100 to 105, he will be £5 worse off, like £5 more of a challenge in his next race. But as he's going up the numbers, he will have to go in from a class 5 to a class 4, maybe even a class 3 if he starts to win a few races on the spin. He might have carried that 12 stone in the class 5 race, and then he's gone straight into a class 3 where the top rating, rather than being 100, might be 130. So his like 105, 110, with that £26 band that they have in each race, he could be then the 10 stone horse right at the bottom, but he just sneaks in, he just qualifies, and you could think, well, hang on a minute, this horse has carried 12 stone and won, now he's only carrying 10 stone, it must be a gift. But it's not. That's not how it works. Yes, he is technically carrying less weight, so yes, there's less physical burden on him, but he's racing against much better horses who are able to carry the weight, and therefore it's a common trap that people fall into. They think he's carrying less weight today, so
absolute rabbit hole.
So actually you want to look at is basically if a horse went up £5, very simply, did he deserve that? If you think actually he deserved more and he didn't get more, then back him again, he could keep winning. If you think it went too far and at the same time he's going up to the next level, then you probably think he's probably not gonna win today.
2 questions. What is the top rated horse right now? What's the number?
Yeah. In the country, I think it's John Bon in Britain, and he's 171.
171, okay.
Which is pretty punchy.
What was the highest Steph ever got to, for the record? See the Eagle Fly was one of our horses. 120
she started off at, and as Duncan said, she had to qualify for that, so she had to run in a few races before she was given a mark.
Yeah.
And as it proved, the handicapper massively overreacted to her famous...
went down off a cliff.
We should post that, actually. We should post the evidence of that race.
Yeah, we should do that. And then the other thing as a reminder as well, because it took me a while to get my head around, is the weight is just the saddle and jockey weight combined, yeah? It's nothing to do with the horse's weight, which for me is they're missing the trick. Just weigh the horse, weigh the whole horse.
They should weigh the horse. I agree.
But there you go. It's like when they, when the F1 drivers get off and then they get weighed to see how much fluids and stuff. They also should do that.
The only other thing I'd add to this as well, from a layman's terms again perspective, I was thinking like football, for example. You had like Accrington Stanley, like an FA Cup game, Accrington Stanley versus Liverpool, for example.
Were they?
Exactly. If you had them versus Liverpool, for example, and if you go on like betting company, like again Bet365 or something, they have a handicap market on there, so you could get like Accrington Stanley, like so you would have Accrington Stanley, say, because they are so much like they're nowhere near as good as Liverpool, they would start with like a 5-goal head start in order to kind of carry. More of a fair game, if you like, rather than starting at 0-0, which was where they always start. If they were 5-0 up to start off with, and then it's a case of can Liverpool come back and win? That's kind of like the football equivalent of the horse racing handicap system, if you like.
Yeah, I like that analogy. It's good.
Can I mention one final geeky thing on handicaps?
One more. What did you say? One little
geeky thing.
Geeky. Yeah.
Hashtag Anorak Corner.
Anorak. Every time you're like, let's try and keep this to like half an hour, 40 minutes. He's like, just one more thing.
You've got me going now. That's what's happening.
It's frothing at the gash over there.
Talking of stuff. So what can happen, as Duncan mentioned, there's a top weight and a bottom weight in the races. and there's no bottom limit to the horse's rating that can get into a race. If it's let's pick a Class 5 race. I'll go. It's for horses rated anywhere between 0 to 100. So if you're rated 101, that's a bad example because there are some weird things.
That's above 100.
But they've bloody changed it now. Me and Dad think this is just ridiculous.
It is.
Let's pretend that rule didn't come in. If you're rated 101, you can't come into this race. But if you're and let's say there's £26 between the ratings. So therefore, if you're rated below 74, you're outside of the weights that are available for that race, but you're still allowed to run. Okay, but it's a bit stupid, really, because your bottom weight is 10 stone, which is the rating of 74, which is £26 lower than the top weight 100. But if you're rated 70, you don't get to carry 4 less than 10 stone, which is what you should be carrying based on your 70 mark. Yeah. You have to still carry the 10 stone because they can't. I mean, jockeys are light enough as it is; they can't keep starving themselves. Yeah. So what that's called is out of the handicap. And if you look at the race card, sometimes right at the bottom they'll have like a little line, and it will say, and it will be just for those horses at the bottom. Horse's actual weight should be X, and it will be like 9 stone something. So that horse has actually made life, well, the trainer, it's not the horse's fault, made life even harder for itself because it's carrying more than it should do. But sometimes they can go and win that, and it happens. But it's worth noting that
another
in the
thing
race
to look out for. Yeah. Good. Well, thanks for that extra tip. Okay, yeah, thanks, guys. I guess let us know, guys, if there's anything else that you'd like to hear about that, if you're not more confused. Hopefully you're not. But yeah, it'd be good to know what we missed and what you'd like to hear. Right, let's do a very quick fire preview and then let's get out of here.
This time, we're going to have a proper look at the races for the weekend, and we're going to give you a selection each for each race. So call that a tip.
You're all about the promises, aren't you? And then 2 days later, you're like, oh, bloody hell, I've over-promised.
When have I said that?
Every day.
Dripping in gravy.
All right, so we'll do a separate video preview, and we'll go into a bit more detail because we'll know the declarations and everything.
Oh, look at him using declarations.
There we go.
Man, we'll also look at the handicap. We'll always look at the handicapper. Right, that's it then. That's a wrap. Let us know, guys, what you're liking about these podcasts, what you want to hear more about, any questions. Don't forget to message us on tailedoffpod@gmail.com or on our socials, Tailed Off. And watch out for the quick preview that's coming out on Thursday, Friday. Depends on when we can do it and get it edited. Until next time, guys, have fun out there. Race hard. Try not to be tailed off. Cheers.
Cheers.
There are no cock-ups. Just
Still
learning.
staying in, mate.
Yeah.
Position. Annie Power at the last race down. Annie Power has gone but in front of the last left. Melody Light.
Try the far side. They're running up towards the finish, and he's mistaken the winning post. He's mistaken the winning post completely, Roger Lockwood. And Hoyt now.
From Archibald, Hardy Eustace defends his title, but Archibald is flattened out in second. Then in third, now White Ride is beginning to come. He's drifting off a true line. He heads for Alice West. He's going to win his 4th Betfair Chase.